A lifetime of hard work, children laughing in the kitchen, family photos on a restaurant wall, a legacy that lives on. It all comes from the power of a conversation, like the one Tommy Hall had with First Horizon Bank about taking over his father's Charleston-based restaurant business. Now the table is set for a whole new generation. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Tommy. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
It's unbelievable that all these months later, and we're still dealing with the fallout from the silly Bud Light decision. Today, we talk with Seth Weathers, who confronted it head-on, came up with a product out of nowhere, super served his customers, and caused a hell of a ruckus while he did that. All that and more today on the Marketing Madmen podcast.
They say marketing is a madman's game. So now we turn it over to the Marketing Madman with Nick Constantino and Trip Job.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here, live from the Battery. And boy, we got a doozy. I think we talked, and we've had some great debates. Actually, we just ran into Janelle King just a minute ago, and I think that was one of my all-time where we had different points of opinion. It did. But we had great points of opinion that day, and we each had different perspective, and we all appreciated everyone else. Well, today, I think we're going to have different points of opinion, which I think is important.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those that, I'll let you set it up a little bit more. I mean, this may be a little difficult for some.
Well, look, I mean, the truth be told, there's opportunity in divide always, right? This country, we make our most money during recessions. That's why it's a grand reset where everyone redistributes money. And, most businesses, most times in life, people are looking to capitalize on downturns or negativity to be positive. And that's how capitalism works. And that's how all wars are won. I mean, let's be honest. This is how life works. And in this instance, Mr. Seth Weathers of Ultra Right Beer, Conservative Dad's Ultra Right Beer, saw the opportunity with Bud Light and the way these corporations were, and he seized on it and capitalized on it. And we talked a lot about that. He's very passionate, and he's very strong in his police, which comes through. And it's important to air it in its entirety. And when he left, the only thing I said was, I'm going to air this in its entirety. So let's frame it a little bit. So obviously, Bud Light, we've talked at length on how they botched it, right? And everyone has an opinion on specifics, but they botched it.
And at the end of the day, the part of Bud Light's problem is they didn't take a stand. They took every 360-degree stand, basically. They came back and well, we're doing this, or no, we don't want to offend this, or now we were doing this. And basically they got everyone mad because at the end of the day, there was no position.
Yeah. Besides the ultimate fact, which I believe is it's just crap beer. Besides that fact, the fact is, you're right. They pissed everybody off. They never said we were wrong. They just kept offending everybody more and more and more, almost like they were going to ping pong off a wall and then eventually in the middle and everyone would be happy. Right. Okay. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Okay. Yeah. There's no way to get to the middle anymore. You're building divisiveness.
Loyalty is driven, consumer brands, loyalty is driven by you understand what the brand's about. You believe in it, or you believe in the product, maybe the quality of the product or the taste or whatever in this case. And I'm with you. I'm a craft beer drinker. I'm not a mainstream beer drinker. And I think that's what they got away from is that, they didn't really think about what their brand was about, and they tried to be all things to all people.
Yep. And they lacked a clear vision.
Yeah.
And Seth Weathers has a clear vision of what he wants this beer to be and who he is the little guy up against.
Right. And he's not going after 95% of the market, probably.
No. And I think in his head, he's probably going after 50% of the market. I mean, let's call it this way. You have 50% Democrat, 50% Republican. He is going after, and there is a growing issue with corporations and the anti-establishment. And honestly, I am all for it. I am a capitalist at its core, but I also understand the hypocrisy of our healthcare industry, of oil, of all of these industries which we have allowed to have free reign and do what they do. I was thinking about it today. How is sports betting legal? And I get it, but if you're supposed to say the people, it has to be a game of pure luck, then how are the casinos allowed to bring so many odds that makes it so in their favor? So you're saying you're letting the people who are putting their money up automatically at a disadvantage versus somebody else, and those people out to profit and capitalize. How is that? I don't understand.
The whole deal of professional sports and betting, we could go for weeks on
But it's
that.
not
I
even a
mean, because
conversation.
it's hypocrisy all
where
around.
is what I believe is if I have a 50-50 chance of losing my money, so should the person that I'm putting my money against.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. They are reading those money lines to go, so the David versus Goliath, I get all that stuff. And honestly, what Seth did was he saw an opportunity. He saw there were a bunch of people that didn't like where this country was going, and they didn't like the corporations that they believed were leading there. So he went and he created his own beer.
So his brand is about the values. He's going
Conservative
after people that have a
ultra-right
value.
beer.
Right.
He's going after Trump supporters, anybody that is behind. We want to take back the control for our kids. We don't like what they're talking about in schools. He wrapped these all together and created a boogeyman, if you will, which is smart business.
Right. And if someone, from the other side says, well, I don't like what he's doing or whatever, fine, you don't have to buy it. He's not forcing any. Right. I mean, ultimately that's the choice we all have to make. You're not being forced on this. And it's for those who choose to buy something based on their emotional beliefs or values.
Right. If you don't like the way that Target does business, don't shop there.
Yeah.
Not shopping there is enough boycotting. You don't need to do more. You don't need to go vocal with it. Just don't go there.
Yeah.
If you don't like Bud Light, don't drink Bud Light. Right. No one is shoving it down your throat.
Yeah.
Right? Because the irony, of course, and I'm a hypocrite to some extent.
Yeah.
Like, no, absolutely not. I'm not going and buying Bud Light. But if I get one for free, I'm drinking it because I'm not going to pay for something else.
Because that's your value. That's what you value.
Value proposition. Who cares? I mean, for the first time, we were at an event at a Hooters golf tournament, and there was a White Claw. I've never even had White Claw before. 6 free White Claws. Far be it for me to say no. Who would do that? But anyway, so I think as we go into a political year, I think it's going to get worse. The good news, personally, I am a big yin yang, balance out to zero, regress to the mean. I think we're going to see the worst of the worst happen, and then it's going to start easing back to getting better. I cannot imagine a more divisive way. I don't think we have the people that are there to bring us together. I don't think that the middle wants to be brought together, but I think slowly but surely, whether it being sheer exhaustion, whether it be a recession, whatever the case may come, more war, I think slowly but surely we're going to start to come back together and realize that what we talk about and what we want is not that different.
Well, I think, so here's an interesting point, and get your opinion, because we'll get into this. I think more and more of what we hear today and sets off these outburst or the rhetoric back and forth is the radical minorities. Now that can be across any segment.
Yeah, the fringe.
Right.
Not the top of the bell curve, the fringe.
But that's what starts to create, whether it's in politics, whether it's in professional business, even our own personal lives. And I think we're unfortunately, social media and other things, we're spending so much time trumpeting and pushing the voices of these radical minorities. And again, both sides or three sides of the coin, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, I think society would probably like to get away and get back to the middle, but I think we're amplifying it.
Yeah. So 2 thoughts. One is that, and while I completely agree with you, I also believe giving them a voice is better than repressing a voice, because when it becomes repressed, it becomes an underground movement. I think that's way scarier all the time. I think in every revolution, revolt, but if you know the psychology of social media, it exists to manifest the negative over the positive, because as human beings, our brains are more naturally attracted to negative outcomes than positive outcomes. So this is limbic part of your brain. If you're running around, you are more likely to run away from a bear than you are to rub yourself up against a tree and get a knife. Your brains work more around the negative, and social media is meant to manifest those things.
Exactly. And I think human nature a lot of times is we always want to make the last point. And I think
that's just me and you talking to each other. But
exactly. But I mean, I think where you're going is, I agree. We should let these opinions get out. Unfortunately, I think sometimes we stir it up and everyone wants to just add one more point, where some of them, if you would just, kind of in the old days, let the dog lie,
you're saying
it dies.
You're saying we. We is the social media mechanism that is making money off preying upon the weakness and gathering people together. Right? So no matter what you think about religion, since the dawn of time, wars have been fought over religion. Wars have been fought about implementing and putting power
And
over
power.
power and control. Politics is almost no
Power
different.
and economics.
So these things are
and religion.
So when I think we the people would rather sit down and have a beer together and agree
Yes.
on things than fight. But I think our surrounding mechanism around us is making the divide greater than it really is.
Hey, at times, look, I believe the media does this because it creates better media and it creates more content and more advertising and everything else.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're doing it right now.
feeds
The
it
station
feeds
does
the
it.
engine.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I hate to say it, but we are part of the problem.
And the truth is that if you know that and you look at it as entertainment and what it is as a way to take your mind, then I'm fine with it. Again, I'm fine with it. It's no different than watching the morons on the Jersey Shore go to the beach, get hammered, drunk, and punch each other in the face. I mean, it's just mindless. If you look at it that way, when you start really rallying behind it and having this as this big cause, I think we get a little lost in it. So back to the beer. So what Seth did a really good job of, he found an opportunity. He'd had a lot of roadblocks along the way. A lot of people, because of what he was trying to do, were trying to shut him down. That I don't agree with.
Right.
I do not agree with the fact that this YouTube channel for Extra 163 was censored because we were talking about Trump. I don't believe in that. I don't know who's allowed to be doing this censorship. Every person, it should be fair. Whatever the beer is called, we should have the fair chance of getting it made and published and produced under the same thing. So he took an unfair disadvantage, used it in his favor, put the beer out, and he is succeeding with it. You know, who knows how big it's going to get? Who knows where it's going to go? I think the industry itself, the beer industry, is on its way down. So who knows? But
And if certain distributors don't want to take it, that's fine, as long as he's not in a state or some other spot that says no, you cannot for political or opinion reasons.
But again, it's a shtick. You see it, it's campy. Like, if you believe this is unified behind politics, a beer, like, you're crazy. Come on. Like, you could tell it almost is a mockery. He said, I read a review, he put one with like a silhouette of Trump on one beer. It was a special edition, right? He had to put in small letters. This is not affiliated with a political party in any way. I mean, come on. Is Trump really slapping his face in a beer? If he was, he would be bombastically screaming about it because that's who he is.
Hey, I remember growing up, my dad came home with Billy Beer. I mean, that was one of the. So it has happened in the past. Billy Beer. Right, in the 70s.
Is the way you said is best. If you don't like it, don't drink it. If you don't like what you're hearing, don't listen to it. No one's shoving this stuff down your throat.
But
don't
we don't.
be there.
But we don't need to censor. We don't need to have government regulations that don't allow someone to have a product for sale in commerce because of political opinion.
And hence, I believe it is our obligation to air all of these. And I agree to air in its entirety. So
So
there's some curses. There's some curses.
Yeah. So just a fair warning.
You hear some beats. Fair warning.
Yeah.
But you will get his passion for it, and I think most people will agree. It takes a lot of cojones to go start something like this and to go to take your politics, because he has been death threats. He has been a target so many times, and I commend him for having the gumption to go do this.
Yeah. So hopefully my takeaway will be, if you do listen, that's your choice, that you take, what are the challenges? How did he overcome those challenges? What are the things he faced? From a personal opinion, take your own opinion into it. We're going to do it as free speech. And so when we come back from the break, you will get a chance to listen to this with Nick and
Seth Weathers.
So you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back.
This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Marketing Madmen. Nick Constantino here. Tripp is out today, so we're going to have a fun conversation about beer in his honor. All right, so I'm sitting here with Seth Weathers, who is the founder and CEO of Conservative Dad's Ultra Ripe Beer. Suck all that in. Did you guys hear it? Conservative Dad's Ultra Ripe Beer. Seth, how you doing, bud?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I really can't complain, man. It is Saturday. It is time for a beer conversation, so let's do this. So let's start, before we get to your product, let's talk about how we got here. So you can't get here without talking about the Bud Light debacle. So how do you think things went so wrong for Bud Light?
They put a bunch of people in a marketing department in Manhattan that have no concept of America. Their parents paid for their college. They've never had to work a day in their life outside of their corporate cushy gig in Manhattan. And they let these idiots do marketing for all of America, which is just absolutely hilarious to even think about. And it just shows you how the corporations now, we're in a rough spot.
Yeah.
It's incredible how not only did they screw up, they just doubled down on screwing up and have continued to double down on screwing up.
Yeah, and I wonder, so we talked about this, we had an episode about this with Carlos Medina, actually. Like, was it the agency? Because, when the bigger the corporation gets, the more bureaucracy there is in agencies.
This was in-house.
That makes it so much more ridiculous.
Far worse. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that one of the problems is that, first of all, as a New Yorker, we don't think anywhere else in the world exists. We think it's New York and it stops there. Like once you leave, and not even upstate isn't even. Let's not even call that. It's like the city world. That's it. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters. So, but at the same time, like Bud Light is not a New York City drink. It is not a Manhattan drink. It is a cowboy, and in the South and in the boonies part of this country is who drinks Bud Light. So I wonder why. When we
did
drink Bud Light. That I agree with, because I have not seen one. And for some context, they were a heavy marketer. They've actually pulled out marketing because they finally agreed, like, oh my God, we have destroyed this so bad. Yep. We just got to stop talking, which I swear to God, I wish they did in the first place. And I think there's a lot that goes into what went wrong, but at some point
it could have been fixed so easily. And in the old day, they were just like, we fired that person. This is dumb shit. We're not going to do it, whatever.
Yeah.
And we're moving on. But instead, they're so afraid of 0.0000001% of the American population. They're scared to death of this group of individuals that they couldn't say anything, and they had to double down. That's really weird to me.
Yeah, it's
like
very
if,
weird.
If there's 0.0000% of any population that has any problem with my company, I'm gonna say F them.
Yeah,
and do what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would be that afraid.
Well, and I think that it sometimes it's just a genuine, real apology and say, hey, we screwed up, my bad, and then pull it out and then stop. But
People would have loved it.
They kept talking. They let the story get wild.
I think they could have even done a whole different thing. They could have fired the person and said, this is not what our brand, and they would have, all the people they lost, they would have gained people.
I agree. They would have gained people, but that decision was not one person's decision. That also shows that you don't have anyone looking over anyone's shoulders. So you're setting yourself up for other problems. Like, right, look, if I make a decision in this company, in this radio station, there's one person at least I have to answer to, right? You should not be able to make decisions on the level they did with just being that one person accountable. So you're right. One person could have been fired, but that would have really ended it. Would that have really changed the behavior? Probably not.
No, all these corporations still hate the average American, and they look down on us. They think we're a bunch of dumb hicks and everything else. And that's exactly the way they treat us. And they think, oh, we're going to do this marketing. It'll be funny for these dumb rednecks. They'll buy our shit. But that's the way they view us.
And honestly, like, this country has changed so quickly, where the South specifically is the cultural hub of this country. And like, it is unbelievable that is still treated that way. And I think it's going to change pretty drastically, pretty quickly. And if you look, the marketing and the music and all of the cultural things are starting to shift. Now, will they ever let that happen in New York? Probably not. Will LA and California, will they believe that that's the case? Probably not.
No.
But you know what? You know who's here now? All the people who left LA, New York, and they're all here now. So eventually it's going to happen anyway. So I agree with that. And I think that, let's talk about it this way. I think that as bad as this was, I don't think this was a Bud Light issue. I think this was a straw that broke the camel's back issue, where there was a lot of buildup that led to this, and this got scapegoated. Look, there are a lot of companies who
It was pretty damn bad. It was pretty damn bad. But I do think that you're right. There's a buildup. They see this stuff all over the place, and it just gets freaking tiring. You're sick of going in Target, and you've got these people wearing their masks, picking out their favorite tranny outfit for their 3-year-old. Like, this is just stupid.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. I don't care who you are. It's stupid.
Yeah, there's a difference between freedom of expression and being things pushed on you.
Yeah,
there's a difference between
well,
people.
it's effing weird too.
Yeah.
Like, it's the country where you got these school boards, which I would love to talk about. It ties into what we're doing in our company at some point. You got these school boards with these freaks of nature, and I absolutely, they are freaks of nature, blue-haired woke nuts that are wanting to give porno books to 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
And that sounds insane. I want to point out that I know how insane it sounds to say that there's school boards trying to give 5-year-olds porn books.
But you're saying that
but
they've allowed it to.
They really do.
It's been enabled to be that way.
No, it's not enabled. They're pushing it. That has been their goal. They fight. This is their existence. Go to these school board meetings. They're fighting to maintain graphic porno books for little kids. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, that's just weird.
Yeah, and I think, again, look, I think
and people are sick of that. And then Bud Light comes along with this shit, and they're like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Well, I think again that's the add up. That's what I said. It's
you're
culminated.
right. That's what I'm saying.
There was a catalyst for all of this.
And you're looking around, you're wondering, why the hell are these school board teachers talking about this shit?
Yes.
What's the prerogative here?
I don't know, and
why?
I don't.
It's just weird.
I
don't understand it.
Let me say my 2 cents about this because I think it's really important. We are so bad at reading and math and the simple things in this country. How do we have extra time to talk about these things?
We don't. We're failing in every level when it comes to education.
Let's take the politics out of it. I fondly believe
there's no politics
that
in not
we have
giving
done a
kids
bad
4 hours.
job of setting our kids up to succeed. We don't teach credit scores or how to balance a budget.
Ass.
We don't teach any of that stuff.
Yes.
Kids come out you know what they do? They probably become the marketing directors at these corporations.
1,000,000%.
But that is the problem.
Yep.
So I will say that without all of the agendas and all that, how about we go back to teaching and putting kids in a position to succeed? Because this country doesn't run without those people who eventually will either start businesses or we can't all be cogs in the machine. And I do believe that it's not the government. I believe it is the corporations that want cogs in the machine. They want mindless people to just buy their things.
Yeah.
To buy their things.
Well, agree. But you got the problem is you've got these weirdos on school boards that think it's more important to teach a 10-year-old how to give a proper blowjob than it is to teach, like you said, credit scores and things that actually matter.
I agree.
And I know this is a weird conversation to have. It's not something that you would like. 15 years ago, if someone told me, "Oh, this is," someone came around saying these things, I'd say, "You're crazy."
Yeah.
But you go look into it, and you're like, "This is just weird. What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
And it's led to us being in the position that we're in now. And I guess having the microphone that we have now, because there's a lot of people like us. Maybe they're a little afraid to come on and say the kinds of things
I don't think
because they don't want to lose their job.
I don't think it's a matter of being afraid. I think that whenever I wish that there was more of a voice for everybody, because when you don't have a voice, you just repress it and you bring it down. And whenever it's underground, it's 1,000 times worse. So I believe there's open conversation.
Backlash, aka what happened with Bud Light, which is kind of what you were saying.
But look, I also believe that the agenda is being driven by the wrong people. So Vivek Ramaswamy, I was listening to a podcast that he did, and one of the things he said was the reason this is all happening is because the corporations and BlackRock, all these are beholden to the state of California, who buys the pension, who are leading these mandates to do all of these things. Yeah. So it becomes a political objective of a state who is not on the same page with the rest of the country, and which is dividing our country, which is the opposite of what should be happening. So I believe that everything that you are saying is happening, and I believe that you only see though the little ones that are the worst cases. I believe that most teachers, if you look at the population as a whole, most teachers, I'm not saying they're smarter, so I believe that they believe their intention is good. I believe that when I go to my kids' school, now look, my kids are in private schools. I'm lucky enough to put them in private schools. They are doing their best to put their kids in a position in which they will succeed.
See, I don't believe this with public schools, and this is going to be where it becomes a little unpopular, even among my own Republican base.
That's okay.
So I think that a lot of it, maybe the intentions of the teachers. How do I word this? Yeah, maybe they have good intentions in their mind, but their good intentions is to undo everything the parents espouse to their own children. I don't buy the thing. And most of these teachers, they're morbidly obese individuals clogging through life. Oh, that's upsetting. Yeah, they're bad examples to the kids. When you can hardly walk down the damn hall because you're so morbidly obese.
So how do you fix that?
You get your kids out of public schools.
Okay, one thing, but the other one is you pay more.
School boards.
You pay more for the teachers. No one wants to pay more in taxes. So how would you? What
We're
would you
already paying these people a lot of money to not work summers. This is very unpopular stuff to say. I'm well aware of that.
I don't disagree. I just I want the solution. What do we do to fix it?
I might lose the brand over this one, but paying. I don't think paying them more. I think good teachers should get. I'd be thrilled for them to be paid more.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of the good teachers. I see a lot of, as you said, good-intentioned individuals waddling around the halls.
But isn't that probably most companies? Most companies have good employees and bad employees, and the good
not
ones
conservative
succeed.
Dad's Ultra Rate beer. They're all good employees. Okay.
Well, look, be your biggest cheerleader, man. So we've been on such a tangent, which I love because that's what we're supposed to do. So
I got in trouble with teachers. I got in trouble with a lot of people.
But look, these are all beliefs that led you to start this business. So let's talk a little bit about it. Okay. So let's talk about how these corporations and the behavior that you see around you and the fear for your family, all these things have led you to make this form of revolt, and then we could talk a little bit more about the product. But it's a revolt. It's a
movement.
I'm starting this because this is something I believe. So one in itself that is brave. It takes balls to do it, but it also takes some strategy. So let's talk about when did you get to your tipping point, and why did you decide that creating this beer was what you had to do?
I think it was, when the whole Bud Light controversy came out, I remember saying, like, God, it'd be great if I knew how to make a beer because this would be a great opportunity. And fun fact, I still don't know how to make beer, but I have people that do. And so it kind of, like you said, that was the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. And I knew that. And I've been waiting. I've watched these cultural things, and I've been waiting for the moment where people are finally saying, that's enough, I've had it.
Yeah.
And watching this, I just knew that was it. And I said, I got to figure out how to make beer. I'm allergic to beer, which is kind of hilarious.
I've had what? Just in
I have
general?
celiac disease.
Okay.
And so I did taste all the beers when we were coming up with the beer and everything. Got sick for a few days to do that. I suffered for the people on that one.
Yeah.
I do like beer though. Nonetheless, so I knew that this would be a cultural moment that could possibly get people's attention.
Okay.
And so I knew we could take from that and develop our own brand that fought against everything all these other big corporations do. All these Americans are out there buying beer. We're buying all kinds of products. We're buying all kinds of crap from communist China that got people in concentration camps, et cetera. But here at home, we're buying beer from companies that hate everything about us, and we're giving them money to put more money into doing all the things we hate.
Yeah.
So all this school board stuff, all these things are funded by these corporations.
Whatever fits their agenda.
Yes.
Whatever fits in their best interest. It fits their agenda to keep rewarding people at the top of the profit rules. Okay.
So why not create a brand that rewards and goes and supports things that our actual customers support and believe? And so that's what we're doing. So every time you drink a Conservative Dad's Ultra Right beer, a portion of those sales are going back to the 1776 Project as one example. And that organization is, look, most PACs and politicians are waste your money, but I've watched this organization for years, and they've gone around, they're flipping school boards. So they're flipping the, blue-haired weirdo that wants to give your kid porno, and they're replacing them with your like local MAGA mom.
Okay.
Which I find great.
Which is call to action. It's real action. It's not 30,000 foot. It's street level action.
So this is like the money's going to. I'm seeing change happen. They flipped, I think, 3 school board membership in Cherokee County, where you would never expect a little bastion. But these things run nonpartisan a lot of times, and people don't know what they're voting for.
But we believe in the same thing, that I'm done with 30,000 foot. I don't need your aerial attack. I need the ground game. What are you doing to execute? I need the ground game.
There's nothing more effective that I've found than for the bang for the buck than school boards. Yeah. And eventually we want to focus on DAs, judges, things like that a lot of people don't pay attention to, but George Soros has paid a lot of attention to, as have others.
I think that COVID forced communities to get smaller and people to be more concerned with what's going on around them. And I think that if you look at change, I think change starts with mayors and city council members before it's going to ever get to state governors.
But school boards, judges, and DAs are particularly important. You look at the guy that stomped to death the kid on a basketball court, and I think I don't remember what his sentence was, but it's extremely lenient. It wasn't life in prison, it wasn't the death penalty, because of the DAs that are cutting deals with these people,
right?
And solicitors and
but again,
judges.
like you said, street level. All right, so we got all of that. So we have the reason you did it. So why did you pick beer? And then what was the process like? That's just an idea. Did you get investors? How did you get on the phone calls? Did you find a distributor? How did you do all this stuff? Let's lay this out.
Well, we did the opposite of what everyone told us to do.
Okay, that's a good way to start.
That seems to have been effective so far. We'll see how it works in the long run. So, again, the beer thing happened because I knew this was a moment. I figured this was a moment that people would finally say, enough, I'm going to go buy from a company that supports my values.
Yep.
I just want a great American beer. And we want to be the best beer company there is, but we're also a movement. And as to we did it as a pre-order. We had a conversation and a deal with a brewery in Illinois.
Okay.
That was going to produce our first batch. I don't think they understood. I was like, guys, this will be a lot of beer. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't.
They didn't feel the movement. They didn't feel that the movement was coming.
I don't think they understood what was coming.
Yeah.
They were little bitches, by the way. And so when it came out, we put out our commercial, which was, you can go watch it. I think on my Twitter alone, it's got almost 50 million views. Over the course of all platforms and news, it's somewhere around 100 million views.
Yeah.
That cost us $600 to make.
Yeah. That's how you start a movement.
It's a good bang for the buck. The brewery in Illinois that was going to produce it for us, again, it was a pre-order. The brewery in Illinois got, a few calls from Newsweek, like, are you going to make this bigoted beer for this awful man and conservative man in Georgia? And that's when they proved they were little bitches. You're going to have to cut that, but people can guess what I said. And they, they said, oh, we didn't know about that. They'd seen the commercial. I have all the stuff. They're just liars, which is, Yeah, weak people are the real problem.
Yeah, and it's a shame too because
so they bailed on us.
They love to cash that check, but all of a
this
sudden
would have changed their lives and their company.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled that it didn't happen with them. And so we had to go scramble, find a new brewery. So we, that put us behind a little bit on the 8 ball, but we've been able to find the ability to produce all the beer you could ever imagine. We're producing it by the truckload now, and with a great partner. Good. And so it was an exciting start. And, of course, people said you'll never find a brewery to brew because every liberal rag in the world came out and tried to scare off any brewer from doing this. You had Newsweek writing all the articles about what company's going to do this, who would ever venture into doing this beer.
But this must have thrusted you into the spotlight to an extent too, because it's an association of you. I mean, look, calling it ultra right beer is nobody's effing business. So this is an extension. Now this is an attack on you almost. Which
I had death threats. I had people send me pictures of my house.
It's crazy. Because you are trying to share the values in which you believe in and use a product to magnify those
Correct.
things.
And by the way, I've never threatened anyone at Bud Light. I've never threatened anyone anywhere about anything. So it's a different philosophy, I'm going to take our money and do with it we want. You do your thing. And I think that's the way it should be. But these people have gotten a little too militant, I guess.
Yeah, well, it just doesn't make any sense because America's supposed to be about freedom, and all you're doing is expressing beliefs you have. You're not imposing them on somebody else.
Exactly.
You're not shoving it and making somebody drink it. You were just saying,
I'm a big believer. You're 18. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Just don't bother me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm real simple.
I agree with that. All right,
so cut your dick off. Go for it.
Let's talk about this. So let's talk about. I believe that the trend was already going downward. We know this. The trend for those American those American style beers, because none of these beers are made in America. They have not been. They have not been.
Conservative Dad's Ultra Right beer is 100% made in America.
The big guys have not. So for those that don't know, InBev is owned by a Belgian company. SAB Miller was South African brewing. They're so conglomerated all over the world that it's insane that we think that these are the American beers and these values we have. But let's put that aside. But the trend was going downward. I believe the trend was going downward for 2 reasons. One is the beer does not taste good. When Bud Light started using rice because it is easier to get rice than anything else, that was the downfall of all this. Who wants rice in their beer? You can't tell me this. How you changed how you were making something that you're pretending to be this American value tradition. That's when this all started going wrong. So I believe this exacerbated a trend going down. So you came in, made a beer in the style of how they were making it. How did you pick the kind of beer you want to make? Because I do know that it is not easy to make a light beer. If you're like a home brewer, you make a dark beer because it hides all the impurities. Yeah. Making a light beer is actually much harder. How did you make the beer and how did you pick the flavor profile and everything?
So we went through, I worked with a great recipe guy that's been brewing beer for decades and really knows his stuff. And so, it involved trying, a bunch of different things and saying, hey, somewhere in between this, somewhere in between that. So I wanted to go with something that is the most drinkable beer, meaning I wanted something that everyone would drink. And so I wanted a classic American lager.
Okay.
And that's what we came up with. Okay. So technically it's not a true light beer.
Right.
But it's a light lager on the lighter side. So if you drink a light beer, you'll probably like this. Yeah. If you drink a full lager, you'll probably like this.
I liked it because, one of the things so I'm not going to sound snobby here, but you're supposed to taste beer at different levels. On the palate, it's supposed to have different tastes, and it does.
New York is coming out right now.
If you drink Miller Lite, it tastes the same the entire process.
Yeah,
no matter what you drink it, you don't taste the hops and the balance.
Right.
To make a good lager, it's got to have different tastes and hit you differently, and that's why you tend to eat it with food because it tastes differently. So you taste the beer, which is an important part of all this.
I agree.
Right? You taste the beer, and I think again, what happens when you don't drink Bud Light? What happens when someone has their first Stella or like a beer that's really been brewed the same way for 500 years? What do you think you're going to do? You're not throwing Bud Light away, but you're throwing it away because you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe I was doing this whole time. Yeah. So all right, so let's fast forward now. You're in bars, you're in restaurants, you have your orders coming in. So where is the most demand coming from? Is it obviously red states? Where is the demand coming from? What age? Give me an idea who the audience is.
Our audience is kind of wild. It was funny. I was talking to a distributor on the way down here this morning, and we were both kind of like, it's kind of hard to target this because it's funny. We have like the country club Republican, and then we have the very rural conservative, independent type person.
But they both believe that they are trying to show their values by the product in which they drink.
Correct.
It is
And one thing that's funny, I've talked to some bars that sell it, and even restaurants that a lot of times you would get your can, they're going to pour it into a glass for you. But they have people like getting upset saying stop because they want to have the can, because they want to have that symbolism
of course.
Sitting on their table, sitting on the bar in front. They want people to know I'm drinking beer out of this red, white, and blue Conservative Dad's Ultra Right beer.
And that's how things spread, though, because if you have that, then all of a sudden that's the advertisement.
Exactly.
You don't need traditional forms of advertising because the can becomes the advertisement.
Exactly. We will not be changing that can design. And so, I guess that it is a little bit of a cultural thing for sure. And I forgot your question.
It's all right. How many states you in? What bars versus are they buying it in grocery stores? And see how is it getting out there?
So we've only been in business 5 months, and that includes the first month of being canceled by our initial brewery. So, but in that amount of time, the amount of distribution we've gotten is it's impossible according to everyone when I got into this industry. Not to mention everyone told me, you're never even going to get distribution, dude. No one's going to give you a brand that has no anything distribution. I mean, we've got better distribution than these brands that have been trying to do it now for 10, 20 years.
I believe it because they're all doing the same thing. They don't have a selling proposition. They're all doing the same thing. They don't have the foresight to see that there's got to be the movement behind it. I get it all. They don't have the merchandise.
Well, you're a marketing
they don't have
guy,
the
so
merchandise. They don't have the merchandise.
They don't get it. It's like, well, Lucky Joe's one-eyed, floppy-eared dogs, brew with a hint of the mist over the Sierras with a deep chocolate roast. Right. Like, no one gives a shit. No one's going to drink that.
Right.
Right.
And they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying their own whimsical story. It doesn't matter. You're all saying the same thing.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's the distribution is, like you said, bars, restaurants, stores, we're all over. So we're in multiple states. We're statewide Georgia, statewide Arkansas. You mentioned only red state. It's odd. So we just signed statewide in Colorado.
Okay.
Which maybe, it's technically a blue or blue
Denver's
state,
blue. The rest of that state is
that's a lot of
as red
population.
as it comes.
Yeah, I did notice it was going to go into some.
But most states are like that. Let's be clear. Like upstate New York is not very blue. Like upstate New York,
it's red as it can be.
Most of the country is just
yeah.
by the city proximity is blue, and then you go out and it's red. And I think I would imagine that the further you go away, one, it's harder to market there. The further you go, it's harder to market because there's not a centralized point of anything, but it spreads a lot farther out there, and you have a lot more people who are going to a store to buy a 6-pack to drink that night than you probably do in a city. I would imagine that that's the case. So is that the target? Those rural, those what are they
it's
called?
Not rural. Again, we're hitting. It's funny. We hit. In Johns Creek, we're in quite a few restaurants. That's where I live, so you imagine it's my backyard. But it's funny that the amount of bars and restaurants and how successful it is in a place like that, which is technically blue now. I think it could go back, but who knows? And so it is a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
And again, think about it. If you're at a place, maybe you're a conservative and you're in an area that's technically blue, but maybe it's 55-45.
Right.
Well, 45% of a lot of people, exactly. You might be more inclined to, hey, I'm because now you're the underdog.
Yeah.
And you want to have that red, white, and blue can and show that you're on the other side.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting, it is interesting where it does really well. Arkansas, we're crushing it there. We're about to go in next week. We go into Tennessee. It'll take a few weeks to actually hit the shelves. We're going into Tennessee.
Good.
Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's all. That's awesome.
West Virginia.
What I'm
Virginia.
envisioning in my head right now is a stare down moment between someone drinking a Bud Light and someone drinking at a table, and just that moment of because it
would maybe happen, but I don't know that there's ever anyone drinking a Bud Light at a table.
That's true. That makes it hard. All right. Well, you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen, and we'll be right back.
Now back to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madman on Extra 106.3. So we've been having a conversation about a lot of things. We've been talking wokeness. We've been talking blue hair. We've been talking drinking ultra-right beer. We've been talking how most of these beers were never really made in America in the first place. So we're going to finish up now with how we take something that you believe in personally, politically, emotionally, and turn that into a product and how you market it. Because I think it's important, right? There's a lot of people that believe in causes, that believe in movements. Very few of them take it, put it into a product, and then go out there and try to sell it. So what advice do you have, one, to yourself? What did you learn now that you would have changed maybe in April? And what advice do you have people who really strongly believe in something and want to take a tangible stand against it?
Oh, God. I don't know that if I knew then what I know now, I don't know that I would have even tried this because this is evidently an impossible feat.
So from what everyone told you.
And so, honestly, my naivety was my biggest weakness and my best asset into this because I went into this industry knowing literally nothing about it, so much so that I question things about, why? They say, you don't do that. We don't do that in the beer industry.
Why?
I'm like, well, now we do. Is there a law against it? And they're like, well, no. Then okay, then now we do it. And so I think it's just go with your gut. Don't censor yourself because so many people do that. And I think it's part of why our product is successful as it is it's a way of people uncensoring themselves in a way and saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, this is what I believe, and I'm not ashamed of it, and I am going to sit out at a bar and hold up the can proudly and drink this. And so I think it's, don't hold yourself back.
Sure.
Don't try to become what everyone else is, because you're going to fail.
Well, and look, it's first of all, it's clever. Right? What you did was clever, and that's an important part. That you're not shoving any belief down someone's throat.
No.
There are plenty of conservative dads in this world. In fact, I would bet most dads are conservative about their children, about how they're upraising, about what they want people to see. And then you're talking about an ultra-right beer. Like, what does that even mean? You're not saying like liberal tears. You're not saying liberal tears. Like, you're not saying it's tongue-in-cheek. It's clever. Yeah. So anyone that gets angry at that by themselves is just crazy. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. There have been way dumber, way more innuendo, way more things out there that people are concerned with. This should not be one of them. And it's booze. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be.
But that's on the word. So if you look at a lot of these corporations, and they're all doing it, they're all just everything gets dumbed down, everything gets bland. There's nothing to be excited. Like, commercials are boring as shit now. You would go to the Super Bowl commercials, which used to be fun to watch. Now I'm like, this is just stupid.
I can tell you why though. So the reason
corporations.
Is that, we are leading all of our marketing with data. No one is actually putting creativity or thought into anything.
Exactly.
Everything is a data point. And let me tell you, if you think data is going to make an emotional connection, you're out of your freaking mind.
You're speaking my language.
Create an emotional connection. The best ads were something that you're like, that's pretty cool. You're not thinking the data points or anything.
100%.
You're feeling an emotional connection, and that is where Bud Light went wrong. They believed that their opportunity to grow was in a subset of a small market that has no growth potential.
Exactly.
And I'm not criticizing. I'm saying by actual percentage of population, it was so small that they took
it's non-existent.
They took an uncalculated risk on a non-existent marketplace. For what reason? I would love to have been a fly in the room. That is the problem, and they're doing that because some dummy with some shit degree went in with a data point and said that's how we're going to make this. And it probably wasn't even marketing because they don't teach that. It's probably data analysis. Who's somebody who doesn't even know what they're talking about.
Well, these guys are pushing. Well, those kids are also pushing their agenda and their beliefs. Like, everyone sitting around the Manhattan bar that they go to is like, wow, it's really bold and brave of you to take that stand. And they're like patting each other on the back and making each other feel great about stuff. So there's a lot of that.
But still, that's why it's so boring. That's why marketing is so boring.
Well, you go back and look at the beer ads of the 80s and 90s. What the hell? They would all be canceled now. Which, by the way, there's no company doing that now except for conservative dads ultra-right.
Pepsi had Ray Charles with like 6 hot chicks on his arms, like just going like this. I mean, but you can't. I agree. And look, here's how I want.
Well, it's coming back, by the way. We got some commercials being made.
That's what I want
that are going to be great.
That's what I want to ask. Look. We are at a point now where I don't think the divide could be any greater. How do we get out of here? And do you see something's got to happen? We always follow ebbs and flows and trends. Do you think the catalyst has happened that people are going to start either aligning themselves or just letting everyone do their own thing? Because I don't think
people will align. But you're going to see, like, our commercials. We've got a lot of great stuff planned, and it's classic American beer, fast cars, beautiful women, and having fun. And that used to be what the beer brands were about,
and the car
now
brands.
They're not.
Yeah.
And so I think that's gonna. I think that resonates with a lot of people. Yeah. And we're, I guess, the only company not afraid to do something that just seems completely non-controversial, but evidently is.
Evidently it is. And you know what? I bet you if you go to those bars, there are plenty of women drinking that beer too. And that I believe.
We have a lot of women supporters.
Yeah. No, well, look, this has been awesome. Congrats on what you've done. I think, honestly, you got to take a stand at some point. And again, I don't think a lot of people have the balls to take a stand with a product and go into an industry like this, turn it upside down, and see what the hell happens. So congrats. And you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3.
Tonight in Arkansas, there's a mother tucking in her daughter and turning off the light. A business owner is burning the midnight oil. An at-home dinner date is plating up possibility. And it's all happening under one roof. How? The power of a conversation, like the one John from Integrity Solutions had with First Horizon Bank about his vision for a sustainable mixed-use building. Now it's not just words, it's life. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/John. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.